Okay, sit.
According to Tailworlds, increasing your tactics level will give you an advantage in simulated battles.
The lie detector test determined you're telling the truth.
Higher tactics means less troops needed to be sacrificed to avoid battle.
The lie detector determined that was a lie.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another Strat Gaming video guide. In today's video, we're going to be covering the Cunning Skills, Scouting, Tactics, and Roguery. By the end of this video, you will have a firm grasp of how these skills work and how to efficiently level them. And if you stick around at the end of the video, I'll show you a cool trick to max out you or your companion's Roguery skill in a single action. I've broken this video up into several chapters, so if you're following along, you'll be able to easily navigate through relevant segments. Check down in the description below for the timestamps. With all that being said, I hope you enjoy this guide, and let's get started. There are three ways in which the scouting skill is useful. It determines how far away we can spot other groups, settlements, or tracks, the difficulty of the tracks we can spot, and how much information a track will give. If we hover over the looking glass at the bottom of the screen, it will tell us our current view distance, but there isn't really a good way to know what these numbers actually mean without examples. Here is the distance we can see at several different scouting levels starting from level 1. This distance will decrease significantly during the nighttime, so be extra careful when the sun goes down. There's no information in-game to tell us what track difficulty is, but from several hours of testing, we can get a rough idea. You have a certain percent chance to spot a group's tracks if you're within the track spotting distance. The higher your scouting level, the higher the chance of spotting tracks. The smaller the group is, the harder it is to spot their tracks. At a scout level of 1, the smallest group we could detect tracks from was 18. At level 50, that number decreased to 10. However, for these two examples, we had to corner a looter group and sit for weeks for the tracks to finally appear. Around level 75 to 100, you do start to pick up tracks from all groups much easier. Track information is well defined, and here's a list of what each level does. From level 1 to 49, you only get track marks. At level 50, you can tell how big the party size is, and the only other information that is useful is prisoner count, giving you the ability to track parties that have large prisoner counts, so you can defeat them and convert their prisoners into your own troops. Now let's look at the two ways in which XP is gained for scouting: spotting tracks and spotting hideouts. You get 50 XP for each hideout that you spot. As long as you are close enough to that hideout, you have 100% chance of spotting it, so it's reliable, and the XP gain is great for those early levels. However, once you get to higher levels, it can take a very long time to gain a level from hideout spotting. At level 75 scouting and a 10x multiplier, it can take 8 hideouts for one level. XP you gain from a single track that you spot is tiny, anywhere from a half an XP up to 3.3. However, once you start spotting more groups tracks, the XP gains will compound and add up very quickly. The best way to understand this concept is to run several experiments and look at the results. First, we will travel from Ostakin in Vlandian territory down to Husenfolk in Asurite territory. We revealed all hideouts on the map to make sure we were only getting tracking XP, and then tested several scouting levels 10 times each to see what the XP gains would be. At level 1, we got 0 XP most of the time. At level 24, the average went up to 90. At level 162, the average went to 2219, and finally at 282, the average went all the way up to 3756. We also tested to see if there was a difference between spotting enemy, neutral, or ally tracks. Individual track XP didn't show any difference. However, the runs yielded very different XP results: 127 at level 24, 4766 at level 162, 8655 at level 282. My best guess here is that enemies will follow you once they are in range, allowing you to spot all of their tracks from ahead and racking up tons of XP. There was a ton of info here, so let's sum everything up into a concise and usable strategy for leveling up scouting. At low level scouting, search for hideouts to gain quick levels. When you get above 50, switch over to spotting tracks for leveling. Follow large armies, go to busy intersections on the map, get enemy groups to chase you, etc. The more tracks you spot, the more XP you will gain, the higher level you will become, allowing you to spot more tracks, and so on. It's a cycle that allows you to level up scouting faster at higher levels, and it's the only skill to do this in the game. But before we finish, here are a few miscellaneous points about scouting. Ignore the tooltip for leveling scouting. Traversing difficult terrain does not level scouting. Group size does not affect XP gain. All armies count as a single track, regardless of how many groups are within that single army. Now we move on to my favorite skill in the Cunning group, Tactics. It's my favorite because it is so bad that I don't even need to cover it in this guide, which is going to save me a ton of time in editing. Okay, I'm partially joking here. Let's break down what tactics is and how it works. First, let's look at the part of tactics that actually functions, the simulation advantage. For our testing, we ran an army of 1,000 volunteers and fought against a well-equipped army of 524. At level 1 tactics, our volunteers will lose 66% of the time. At level 50, we will win and have 734 casualties on average. As we increase our level to 300, that casualty rate goes down to 589. If we add in all of the perks from the tactics skill tree, that number goes down to 475. We see a 24% drop in casualties from level 300 with no perks to level 300 with all the perks. We see a 58% drop in casualties going from the worst loss at level 100 to 330 with all the perks. I also ran tests with 1,000 of every tier unit available to see if there was an optimal unit to use for auto-resolve, and here is what we came up with. Every unit in the game has its own stats for auto-resolve, but each tier and troop type were all within a few percentage points of each other. An example of this, the tier 2 Aserai and Empire melee troops were within a couple percentage points of each other. The best unit for each tier was always melee troops. Mixing melee with anything else always resulted in worse results than if it was just melee by themselves. Tier 6 units slightly outperformed tier 5, but it may not be worth it based on the cost and rarity of obtaining tier 6 units. In order to test if there was any advantage to auto-resolving a battle rather than commanding it in person, we ran a few battles to compare. We removed all personal weapons from our main characters so that we couldn't participate in the killing. Using only tier 5 melee troops, we were able to easily defeat the same enemy army and only lost 188 troops, most of which were injured. If we auto-resolved this same battle, the majority of the time resulted in 100% loss of our army. Next, we have the gem of tactics, sacrificing troops. If you wish to avoid a battle, you have the option to sacrifice some of your troops and inventory in order to get away. Unfortunately, this part of the skill leveling is completely broken. We collected a ton of data, but there was very little coherence to it, so we won't even bother posting all the results. There was one pattern that did emerge. The higher your tactics level was, the more troops you would have to sacrifice to get away. It's entirely possible that I'm an idiot and I don't understand military tactics, but my first assumption would be that higher military tactics should result in less losses. If only Napoleon was still alive, we could ask him. There are two ways to gain tactics XP, having your soldiers get kills and sacrificing troops to evade a battle. Anytime one of your troops gets a kill, you gain XP. The XP amount is solely determined by the tier of the troop killed, starting out at tier 1 giving 1 XP, all the way up to tier 6 giving 10 XP. You also gain XP from sacrificing troops to avoid a battle. The XP you gain is solely determined by how many troops are sacked. All troops give 50 XP per sacrifice regardless of their tier. A couple important points before we go over efficient leveling. Auto-resolving battles gives the same XP as if you fought it personally. There's no bonus. You don't get XP if the enemy surrenders to you. The XP gained is the same for kills and injuries. All casualties inflicted are the same. Enemy lords give XP based on what their tier would be if they were a troop. Example, a level 21 lord would be equivalent to a tier 4 troop, hence they give 5 XP. Sacrificing troops to enter or exit a town during a siege does not give XP. Now let's look at the best way to increase our tactics level. Step 1. Fill your personal army up to the limit with volunteers or peasants. Step 2. Go find an enemy that is stronger than you, let them catch you, and sacrifice troops to get away. Step 3. Repeat until you're satisfied. Let's do a quick comparison between passive XP gain from your troops getting kills and actively leveling it through sacrificing. I broke down an average army from the AI, and the troop tier average roughly came to something between tier 3 and tier 4. If we were able to defeat an army of 200 troops, 100 of those being tier 3 and 100 being tier 4, we would have gained 900 XP. To earn that same XP, we would only need to sacrifice 18 of any troop type. If we were to gather 200 volunteers and purposefully sacrifice them, we would gain 10,000 XP. Now for the final skill on the list, Roguery. Roguery is useful for gaining more loot after battles from defeated parties and making it easier to sneak into cities that are refusing entry. Let's look at how these two change as you gain levels. When you win a battle, you get rewarded in two different ways, dinars and items. We ran several battles and recorded the loot gained after to see what different levels of Roguery would yield. Roguery level does not affect the dinars you gain, but it does increase the total value of the items gained. Starting at level 1, we averaged 34,000 40,365 dinars. At level 50, 41,603, and then all the way up to level 300 without the perks at 54,854, and with the perks, 82,997 dinars. A couple of interesting things to point out here. There is a lot of RNG that determines what loot you get post-battle. There's a clear increase from each level gained, but even at the same level, we sometimes would get a very expensive item drop that pushed the loot value 50% or more above the other results in that same level. Roguery also changes the chances of sneaking into a city that is currently denying entry. Your chances of getting in are affected by a couple things: your Roguery level, as well as the level of the walls of the city. Level 1 and level 3 walls are the exact same, and level 2 walls are 1% harder to get in. Let's look at how our chances change with Roguery levels. At level 1, we have a 7% chance of sneaking in, but 22% chance at level 50, and then all the way up to 97% at level 300. If we take the Two-Faced perk, then at level 50, we raise our chance to 32% and 100% at level 199. Let's now look at how you gain XP for Roguery. There are 6 ways: sneaking into a town, escaping prison, ransoming prisoners, recruiting bandits to your party, raiding villages, breaking a noble out of prison. Let's expand on the 4 categories we did not list XP for. Ransoming prisoners gives 6 XP per prisoner regardless of their tier or level. Nobles also give 6 XP regardless of their level. The big difference between each troop tier is how much money you gain for each. Looters give the least at 5 dinars, and tier 6 troops give the most at 150. Nobles have their own equation for how much they will give, but there are a couple patterns that are easy to understand. Higher levels pay slightly more, higher clan wealth pays more, clan leaders pay significantly more. Recruiting bandits into your party will give XP based on the tier of troop you recruited. A tier 1 looter gives 2 XP, all the way up to tier 5 bandit boss gives 10 XP. XP is also given for raiding villages. The way raiding works is a little more complicated than most things in this skill, but as always, let's break it down into more manageable parts. From the beginning, you approach a village with your army and commence the raid. If your army is less than 8 times the defending militia, you will be forced to fight them. If you have more than 8 times, they will simply let you raid for free. Once raiding begins, you will see the progress bar for the raid appear. Every few hours, you will get a tick which progresses the raid. Each tick will earn you a dinar reward based on the hearths of the village, usually around 10 to 50 per tick, some resources from the village's supply, and some XP, between 4 to 12 XP, and remove some hearths from the village. The speed at which you raid is only tied to the size of the raiding force. 25 troops will take roughly 3.5 days, while 1,000 troops can get the same job done in just under a day. The total XP gain only depends on the raid ticks earned, so the slower the raid takes, the more XP you will earn. Completing the raid will result in between 29 to 30% of the village hearths being removed, and a -1 per day hearth modifier for several days, the balanced settlement losing food and dinar income per day, and the complete shutdown of that village's functions such as trading and recruiting troops. Some interesting things to note about raiding. Higher hearths give more dinars, but the same XP. Roguery level has no effect on any aspect of raiding, be it loot, XP, speed, etc. Raiding causes a relationship hit to each notable in the village as well as the bound settlement's noble owner. Now for my favorite part of the whole guide, prison breaks. You can attempt to break any noble out of a prison as long as you are not at war with them. You can do this by visiting the dungeon of any town or castle and selecting prison break. You will have the option to pick which noble you want to break out and how much you will need to pay to bribe the guard. The cost of the bribe can be anywhere from 1 to 2,000 dinars or more. Once you are in the prison, you have the option to have the noble follow you and help, or sit there and wait. You will need to dispatch up to 5 guards and exit the final door in order to successfully break the noble out of prison. You will be rewarded with tons of XP and a huge relationship boost to that noble's clan, depending on your charm skill. When it comes to XP gain for prison breaks, you can earn in 3 ways: successfully breaking out, killing all guards but losing the noble in the process, or being knocked out before making it out. Failing the prison break will give you anywhere from 1434 to 2271 XP, regardless of how you fail or how many kills you get. Successful breaks will give from 3565 XP up to 5914. I ran nearly 100 prison breaks trying to find the pattern for what gives more XP and nearly gave up when I accidentally figured it out. The amount of time you spend in the prison break dictates how much XP you earn. If you sprint to the end without letting go of the forward button, you can net nearly 6,000 XP. If you take your time and go it slow, you will earn roughly half of that at 3,500 XP. I guess that makes sense. You want to spend as little time as possible in the danger zone if you're doing something crazy like this. A couple final points about prison breaks. You cannot leave until all guards are dead, so running past them does you no good. Once you clear a prison, if you come come back to break another noble out soon after, there is a chance that the guards are low tier. I've seen 5 peasants before. You will have to wait 7 days before you can attempt another prison break from that same dungeon. Looking at all the different ways you can earn Roguery XP, it's very clear that doing prison breaks as fast as possible is the most efficient way. My favorite strategy for leveling Roguery goes like this. Don't become a mercenary or vassal, just stay solo for now. Look on the Kingdom tab and find factions who are at war. Visit the bordering towns and castles of these factions looking for imprisoned nobles. Grab the best two-handed sword that qualifies as a civilian weapon. Once in the prison break, tell the noble to wait. Run as fast as you can to the end, using only thrust attacks to kill the guards. If you have to fight more than 2 at once, then circle around them so that you can't be attacked by more than 1 at the same time. Hit that exit door as fast as you can and reap the rewards. We are nearing the end of the video, and as promised, I will show you a cool trick for maxing out the Roguery skill of your main character or any companion. To do this trick, you will need any town. Castle will not work, and you must own the town personally. Next, you will need to pile up as many prisoners in the dungeon as you can. How many prisoners you save up depends on how many levels you want. Recall from earlier that we earn 6 XP regardless of the troop tier, so all prisoners are valuable here. The most impressive results I could think of would be to go from level 240 up to 330 in a single second. Let's calculate what we need to accomplish this. Looking at our handy XP chart, we can see that we need 4,002,180 XP to go from 240 to 330. If we have 10 attribute points into Cunning and 5 focus points into Roguery, we will have a 12.5 XP multiplier, which means we only need 320,000 XP to accomplish our goal. We divide by the XP per prisoner to get a grand total of just over 53,000 prisoners. Under normal circumstances, if you were ransoming prisoners as you get them, you would level up 1 at a time. Once you go past level 240, you reduce the XP multiplier, making it even harder to gain levels. This is partly why it takes so long to level up once you get past 240. If you were to ransom all of those prisoners at the same time, it's treated as a single XP gain event, meaning you gain at the XP multiplier rate before you level up. Basically, you get to keep that 12.5 X multiplier all the way through 330. This is also the only way to break the hard cap of 330. If you were to turn in 100,000 prisoners, you would end up somewhere around level 450 Roguery. Maybe 330 Roguery isn't that useful, so let's look at a more reasonable scenario. You have a companion at level 70 Roguery, 2 attribute points into Cunning, and 2 focus points into Roguery. Their XP multiplier would be 4.75x and would begin to diminish if we level up any further. The hard cap for Roguery here would be level 98. Let's say we really want to get that level 100 perk. To go from level 70 to 100, we need to have 135,000 XP. Divide out the multiplier, we get 28,000 XP. Divide out the 6 XP per prisoner, and we get 4,700 prisoners needed. This is much more doable. If we collect 1,000 prisoners per war, we could easily be ready by the end of the 5th war, and if there's one thing Bannerlord isn't short of, it's constant wars. Once we have the needed prisoners, call your companion into your army, take all of the prisoners into your party, and exit the city. Be sure to keep the game paused and don't move, as this will cause the prisoners to flee instantly since you'll be way over your max prisoner limit. Click on your companion's portrait in the bottom right, tell them you need to inspect their troops, transfer the prisoners to their party, go back into the city. They will automatically ransom any prisoner they have in their possession, and you'll see a plus 30 levels into Roguery for that character. One final tip for collecting prisoners faster: if you fight a battle in an army with your own parties, you can inspect their troops after the battle and transfer all of the prisoners they collected into your own party. I want to thank you all for watching another Strat Gaming video guide. If you found something useful in this video, please consider giving a like and a subscribe below. The likes really help make a difference with the YouTube algorithm, and I would really appreciate your help. Let me know in the comment section below what kind of guide you would like to see in the near future. Next Friday, we will have the complete guide to social skills, so be sure to hit that bell notification so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you on the next one.